You don't even want to know what my grandfather cut his name.
Cut?
No, what did he cut it for?
So when he came from Cyprus, it was Papa Michael Haji Athanasio.
Oh,
so Lukey told me this. So my dad has cousins that are Papa Michaels.
So is that a first?
They took the first half.
They took the first half. Papa took the second half, or the last half.
So who took the first half?
His brother. So dad's got first cousins that are.
Wait, so that's one surname, Papa Michael.
That was one because like the Papa means there was priesthood in the family. I don't know. There's all this shit. Lukey knows it. My brother is into all that shit.
Into that. Yeah.
So the worst part of being
you cut the O and I cut fucking 48 letters.
The worst part of being an Alec is the amount of times people call me Alex, which I'm just used to at this point. But it gets so bad. My actual government issued driver's license said Alex. And I'm like, are you kidding me? The government doesn't even know my own name. And I went with it for like a year before I finally fixed it.
Which state are you from?
Minnesota. Well, I'm from Georgia.
Yeah.
And then I've been living in Minnesota for the last 7 years.
Nice. Minnesota. Oh, well, we're back anyway with Donnie. Melbourne Strength Culture Podcast, #1 in the hearts, #1 in your charts. I've taken Jamie Smith's seat, Mutiny. And we're here with Alec Blenis from Complete Human Performance.
Yep.
The hybrid man. I reckon you are probably almost the hybrid man. I think you're almost taking Alex Viada's
man.
crown. You're almost.
I didn't say it.
No, we hit it. We hit it inside fake beef. Yeah. That's
we're all about in your company.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Obviously, you've blown up a little bit on the socials recently. I know you said I saw you put a post out recently that said you had just been posting your training for years, and only recently you've sort of blown up. When did you start to feel the little bit of a spike in sort of followers and attention that you were drawing to yourself?
Yeah, I feel like, and I've been sharing stuff about my training, helping other people be better trainers, just content that I thought was cool and useful for many years, just kind of going nowhere. You know how it goes. You like throw it out into the void and nobody sees it. And then started to pick up some momentum maybe 18 to 24 months ago. I think that setting the Murph world record kind of helped with that. Give yourself some credibility and people will have a reason to care about you. But then another big part of it was for a long time, I would just kind of put content out there and then disappear, kind of shrink back in my hole. I wasn't an active participant in the community. So I think putting some more effort into like intentionally reaching out and talking to people and things like that was really, really helpful in getting other people to care and kind of get that message out.
Hectic. The Murph world record. So I've seen that as well. Can you run us through that? Because obviously a lot of people will be listening, they'll have no idea what that is, but it's like it's a conditioning event.
CrossFit workout,
Take us through it. What is it? And how? And what's the world record that you set?
So Murph is a famous CrossFit workout. It's a memorial workout in honor of Lieutenant Michael Murphy. So every Memorial Day, especially in the United States, but really all around the world at this point, people do the Murph workout, which is a 1 mile run into 100 pull-ups, then 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and another 1 mile run, all with a 20-pound weight vest. Two main ways to do it. You can partition it. So that means you do like 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 squats, and go through 20 rounds of that to get all your reps done. You can also do it unpartitioned. So you do all of the pull-ups and all of the push-ups and all of the squats. And I have the record for the weight vested and unpartitioned format of it in 32 minutes and 41 seconds.
Jesus. Fit.
That's crazy.
I know you did lose me a bit there. It was just like push-ups, pull-ups. It's
a lot.
It's a lot. 32 minutes.
Unpartitioned is the toughest. That's the tough way. It has to be the tough way. It fully has to be.
To give people some context, like someone who, like one of us who hasn't really trained for anything, what would you typically see us completed in? Like someone who's done a bit of cardio, like we're fit, we can run an hour, run a 10K, but then what would be like?
So most people, like your kind of average CrossFitter, it'll take them about an hour, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I can do it in an hour, and they honestly do it pretty poorly, like just trash reps and stuff like that too. So most people, if they're doing it to competition standard, it will take them over an hour. So it's a pretty tough workout. Usually leaves people pretty sore for a number of weeks.
And what are the movement standards for each movement?
Yeah, so and the mile run obviously is you just got to cover the distance, obviously. For the pull-ups, it can be kipping, it can be butterfly, it can be fake un-American pull-ups, as I'm often told in my home country.
Un-American pull-ups. What are un-American? So American pull-ups would be strict.
Strict. Yeah. If you're on the internet and you're not doing strict pull-ups, you're a bad American and you're a disgrace to your country.
Does that come from like the Navy, like
the military and the
military?
It comes from the military.
Yeah.
And the best part is inevitably whenever someone's like, those aren't real pull-ups, you'll like look at their page, you scroll a couple rows and you see them doing like halfway down. You know? And it's like those aren't pull-ups either.
It's
man.
the same kind of thing.
It's okay.
I can string one keeping pull-up together.
I think it's just the technique, the skill side of things.
It's fucking hard.
It's hard to coordinate. We had one of the girls on the podcast, Anna, that came and took us downstairs after to do and it was just all the technique. It was just the coordination standpoint of we were just
it was hard.
We needed time to practice it, but it was
I mean, getting off on a tangent here, but like it's just so funny how people pick certain movements that like, no, you can't use momentum, you can't use the rest of your body, and they'll be like, oh yeah, clean and jerk. It's like it's just a bad form overhead press, basically by their logic. We use momentum on all sorts of other lifts, like Olympic lifts and whatnot, and then you do it in a pull up, and again, you're a disgrace to your country. It's pretty great.
Yeah, my favorite is when people are performing an exercise as is the rules of their competition, and people say it's like just wrong, like in powerlifting, like sumo deadlifting. It's like, but it's part of the rules, man. Like, don't get upset. Like, if you think you're always better, cool, but they're following the rules. Like, tough luck. Do it that way. Then if you've got a problem with it, like,
yeah, exactly. People are always like, I could do it if I cheated.
Then do it.
Then do it.
Do it in 32 minutes. Like,
I think that's my most favorite form of demonizing an exercise, though, is like by way of nationalistic pride.
I've never heard that before.
That's
I've never heard that.
I reckon that is my favorite way. Like if you touch your toes, you blow a disc or whatever the fuck. Like that's the best one. You're un-American.
Because it's really
that is.
I can't speak for the American military, but I've heard guys from the Australian military like, oh yeah, you'll do 20 pull-ups, but they're not full reps. So I don't know what the American standards are for pull-ups, but from what I've heard from guys in the military here, it's pretty sketch. Or even like the push-up, they'll do 50 push-ups, but they're just like
pre-season footy push-ups.
The military here, though, like
different level maybe to America.
I don't know. Even the guys that I know that have been there, like, hey, whatever, I like that. There's a lot of pride to be in, like in the American military, isn't there?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like very like they're proud to be.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't know if they have that here.
And even the push-ups, though, like sometimes I don't like the Murph workout because like the push-ups aren't to my standard for push-ups.
Yes.
They're the competition standard. But like
what is that? What is it?
Like in the competition, you have a pretty thick weight vest on, right? So you just got to get the weight vest, got to get your chest down to the ground, like at the level of the sternum. But when you're doing push-ups with a weight vest, you hit the ground pretty early, you know?
Yep.
And I'm used to, like, I do deficit push-ups and that sort of thing. So it always feels like very short range. Yep. But that's the competition. And if you think you can do it faster than 32 minutes, give it a shot.
That's it.
No, I'll be right.
Yeah.
A squats is just a parallel air squat.
Yeah, squat to parallel. The trick with those, like when people get going really fast, is they tend to not come up all the way. Because like squats are pretty easy, so you really got to like lock out and pull yourself down really quick. It's hard to keep those going
20
quickly.
20 kilo weight vest and just
20 pounds. So
20
like,
pounds.
Yeah.
So we're talking
9 kilos.
9 kilos, yeah.
Maths.
The maths, the conversions. Yeah. So the hybrid. So have you, with your training, like you obviously, I'd look at you now on Instagram and be like, we called you the hybrid guy, taking Viada's crown. But no, you're definitely we're starting beef. We'll get Viada in the chair. Tell him.
I think you're starting beef.
We're starting beef.
Not we. Don't fucking put me in this, bro.
No, I love Alex Viada. I literally consumed all his content when I started doing my tries, and
now you're shitting on him. Look at you. Look at your progression.
You know what? I'm taking his crown.
Back then I used to like stuff.
I'm taking his crown.
Oh my god.
So when you got into training, were you always like interested in both weights and endurance based events? Was that how you started out?
More or less, but not because of hybrid. Like at the time, I didn't even know it was a thing.
Yeah.
I was just like a kid who wanted to do all the sports, and I didn't really care about being the best at any of them.
Yeah.
I did cross country. Despite being tiny, I played football. Believe it or not, I was pretty decent for my size until
what position?
I don't even want to say it out loud because it's embarrassing. I was a lineman, and I was actually pretty decent.
They're usually the big.
Yeah, well, I was just quick and agile,
guys.
so I would play defensive line.
Yeah.
And I would just dart between two people, and and I would always get underestimated by like the bigger guy on the other side. They're like, oh, it's gonna be a joke, and then just sneak under really quick.
Because usually the linemen are the big fucking
defensive line.
Yeah,
big boys. So you got in. So you started. When did your training? When did you start lifting weights? Like when was the?
I mean, I've lifted weights like, you know, I'd go in my brother's room, my older brother's room, and like pick up his dumbbells when I was in elementary school and like hit some bicep curls. But like, I feel like what guy didn't at some point do some stuff like that? Had like a pull-up bar in my room, you know, growing up, and would do some pull-ups. But I would say I started seriously lifting weights probably 2014 or so. So like 10 years ago.
Yep.
Can't even do my math.
10 years ago. We're 2024 now.
Yeah,
I'm knocking all this.
Maybe even a little bit longer than that. But running was always my primary sport. So lifting was kind of always secondary. But it was important to me. I did enjoy it quite a bit. So I was stronger than your average runner. Never an amazing runner by any means, but pretty decent. And I also did some track and field stuff. So I was a pole vaulter. That was one of my main sports for a little while. And you obviously have to lift quite a bit to be good at pole vaulting. Yeah. So basically fast forward a couple of years, I did my first Spartan race just for fun. I was just kind of looking for some fun things to do. But I think my background of distance running with some of the strength stuff from playing other sports really just set me up for that really, really well. So in my first race, I got third place, made the podium in my first Spartan event, and was hooked. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. It's super fun. So I actually stopped running for school and just like started doing some more Spartans. And I podiumed, I think, at, you know, the majority, if not all of my first, you know, half dozen events or so. And then Spartan approached me. He's like, hey, do you want to be on our pro team? We'll fly you around the country. We'll do a bunch of these. So I ended up doing like 100 Spartan races in a matter of just a handful of years, while going to college, which was a bad combo, while also doing some like ultra marathons and stuff on my own outside of the Spartan circuit. So I just did an insane amount of distance running, both obstacle course racing and ultra marathons, while lifting, while going to school. It was a lot. I got super burnt out on it. So I kind of backed off from competition, but I kind of made a name for myself in that kind of niche of the endurance community and started doing some coaching. And by the time I got out of school and was thinking about what do I want to do with my life, I had established a coaching business that was doing fairly well. I was like, this is a heck of a lot more fun than physics, which is what I went to school for. So I just kind of went all in on the coaching side and never looked back.
Yep. And then when does Complete Human Performance come in? When did you...
Yeah, so while I was on the Spartan Pro team, obstacle course racing as a sport was really gaining a lot of traction and popularity, especially like a lot of our military clients, for example, at CHP would do obstacle course races just kind of for fun and for training and things like that. So a lot of overlap between military athletes and OCR. So one day I got a call from Alex Viada, and he's like, you know, you've been crushing it in the OCR scene. We've seen some of the stuff you've put out about training for OCR and that kind of stuff. And I had just taken Alex's first course, the Hybrid Master course, back when it was called something else. And part of that, you have to create programs and submit kind of written samples of your work. So he had seen my actual programs that I'd written as well. He's like, we think it'd be a great fit. Would you like to come on the team and start working with some OCR athletes? So that's kind of how I got started with them. But I soon branched out from there and started working with a lot of military athletes as well, preparing them for like special forces selection and that sort of thing. And I've really just continued to expand from there and continue to work with a broader and broader selection of athletes.
We interrupt this episode of the podcast with a word from our sponsors, Hardcore Harry's. You may remember Ethan Fleming. He is Australia's version of David Goggins. He has created a crazy new event called the King of the Hill, which is a last man standing event on November the 2nd. And the way it runs is it's a 3.2 kilometer loop up this big ass hill, and it just runs every hour on the hour. And the last person standing, the last person climbing that hill is going to win a $10,000 cash prize. Ethan wanted me to tell you that there's no second place, there's no third place. It is literally the last man standing takes all the glory of the King of the Hill. As a loyal listener to the Strength Culture podcast, you can use the code CULTURE2 at www.hardcoreharrys.com.au to save both 25% off the ticket price for the King of the Hill or 25% off any of their apparel line for their endurance events, spray jackets, hats, and all the other cool stuff. We'd love to see some Strength Culture faithful people climbing that hill on November the 2nd. So if you do decide to jump on board, please let us know. We'd love to know how you go. Again, all of the information at www.hardcoreharrys.com.au. King of the Hill, November the 2nd, 10,000, last man standing.
What's it like working for the king? The king 100.
It's fantastic. I love complete human performance.
Yeah.
Love Alex Viada. Love Ariana. Love the whole team. It's great getting to learn from such a great crew of coaches. And that's been the best part of it, is just getting to kind of absorb the knowledge from so many other people.
Yeah. He's just like a walking encyclopedia. I we watch his stories when he does his Q&As.
I can't even take in what he's saying. I'm just like, man, how the fuck do you know this?
Yeah. He pulls shit out that just, it's not even related to training. It'll be like something. He must just, where the hell does he get his knowledge? Like, what does he consume? Does he just pounding YouTube? Like, is he,
everything?
because he knows so much, or does he got an eidetic memory and just sees shit and remembers it?
Yeah, it's amazing because most people, I think, could come up with, a couple quality answers like that if they kind of sit and prepare and like refresh their memory, like go over some notes, and they're like, all right, I can do one of these responses, and he'll just rip like 40 of them in a row while like spinning on the bike. It's just crazy what he knows off the top of his head.
It's unbelievable. How do you know how he consumes content?
I don't know how he consumes content, but the man's brilliant.
Yeah, because like I'm a YouTube and podcasts for me. Like I think that was one thing I learned early on, was like figuring out a way to consume content that is easy for you.
Yeah,
I know like podcasts are easy because I can do it when I'm like doing cardio or like walking the dog or whatever.
And the incline pressing
incline pressing podcasts. But yeah, I think that was one thing I learned early on, because like trying to read and shit, I was just like,
I love reading.
You love?
I can read so much faster. I can consume way more content reading than anything else.
Anything else?
Like if I had the script from a podcast, I could probably read 10 podcasts in the time it took me to listen to one.
Fuck, that's crazy. You speed read?
Yeah.
So I purely read fiction.
Okay.
I cannot read non-fiction. It just does.
That's maybe why you don't know.
Well, I don't know. This is why I can't.
That's the secret, Charlie. You got to start reading.
Read about the subject matter. So
So the long distance running. So you said you came from a running background. So through like high school running, that was your thing.
Yeah, middle school, high school. I started off as a bad runner, and I started off.
What's bad? What in your terms? What's bad?
Well, so when I was in
I guarantee it's better than me.
you may be surprised. So like, rewind way back, like elementary school, I was the kid that people made fun of, like, look how bad that kid is at running.
Yeah.
And then come middle school, I was still kind of like on the slower, more unathletic side. I was also pretty young for my class, so I just hadn't developed as much. But I wanted to do track and field at a very small school. I think we had like 7 guys on the track team, right? Yeah. So the guys who were actually athletic got to do the cool events, and they're like, all right, who wants to run the 2 mile? And I'm just like, I volunteer. I offer myself up as sacrifice. So that's kind of how it started, and I was terrible at first.
When you say terrible, what was your mile time?
I think when I was in middle school, like maybe 6th grade, I ran a 7-minute mile for my first mile or something like that. So I was
still better than
running a mile. It's like you're running the mile at the track meet, and then you're like, oh, that's cute. That's kids still out there.
Yeah.
But the great thing about endurance training is anyone can get good at it eventually. You just have to keep running.
Yeah.
If you're not good at running, you just haven't run enough.
Yeah. That's what I've realized, because I was like a powerlifter, 6 years just powerlifting, and got to the point I just felt like just uninspired with my training, and just like the same squat, bench, dead over and over again. And I just decided one day I'm going to start running, and signed up for a triathlon as well, and just started running. And I've just realized like how quickly you can progress in 14 months. Did my first half marathon around a 10K. Yeah. I just never, ever thought I could do a half marathon. Like I thought that was just, but if you actually do it, and that's off twice a week running, nothing crazy. Like I think most people, I'm of the firm belief that anyone can do a 10K.
Absolutely.
Like I don't think it's that if you just stick with it for a little bit. But people, I tend to feel, and we see this same pattern with obviously being coaches, people tend to just not stick to things for long enough.
What I think is weird is if you bring someone into the gym, like a first timer or someone that's like worked out a handful of times, you run them through like some stiff legged deadlifts, their hamstrings get just destroyed for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Somehow that's cool, that's normal, it's fine, they'll come back.
Yeah.
You take someone for a run and you just completely fuck their legs. They're like, I'm never doing that again. No. But it's the same thing. You just have to keep doing it. You'll get better. It's going to suck at first. Your legs are going to hurt at first. You're going to have a hard time walking around. And if you are someone that like lifts, for example, and you start running, like, yeah, your lifts are going to suck for a while. They're going to take a hit. But people will get 2 weeks into it, 3 weeks into it and be like, cardio is killing my gains. And it's like, well, yeah, it is right now.
Yeah.
You have to see it through. You have to be patient. Endurance training is all about patience. You don't get good in 4 weeks or 8 weeks. Like, you get good in years.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it's going to kill your gains for a little bit, and you got to get past that point.
And I'm definitely feeling that now, which is cool to see. But yeah, you just got to stick with it because it just starts to come a little bit more naturally. Because I know even when we started running, I'd look at this guy and he'd be just smashing me. And I used to think it was so fast, but now, like, you slowly, and he's gotten better as well. So, like, we've both gotten better. Like, the times that I used to think were really fast, I'm doing those times now after a year, but just sticking with it, chipping away. Yeah.
I think that, like,
80% good forever is my philosophy with training.
Nice.
Not all or nothing.
So just do explain that a bit. Explain
80%. So I just think, like, everyone's so all or nothing, and you probably see this with people. They're like, I'm going to get committed. I'm doing. They do it for 3 months. They derail. Life gets in the way or whatever, and they derail a bit, and they just everything falls to shit. My thing is just 80% good forever, and 80% can mean, you know, showing up for 80% of your sessions for the week, or just whatever. 80, if you miss a couple exercises, it's not the end of the world. Show up the next day, or if you can't get out for your full 10K run, just do a 5K or whatever it is. Just keep showing up in some way, shape, or form at 80%, and do that for 10 years, and you will be so surprised with where you're at in 10 years' time. Rather than this all or nothing, do it all for 3 months, then just fall off the wagon, and that's what I mean by that.
Sounds like you don't want it bad enough.
Well, it's funny with like what people have in their head as the bare minimum.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is in terms of like kilometers, but kind of back in the States, if you're not running at least 3 miles, why bother? Like, what's a 2 mile run? Like, what the hell is that? Like, what are you even doing?
Yeah.
People have this like minimum, like you got to at least do this or it doesn't even count. It's like you go in the gym and you got to do 3 by 10. Like, why would you just do 2 sets? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of what people's mentality with it is. And so people have this preconceived notion of, okay, if I'm going to be a runner, like this is the minimum, this is the floor of like, I got to run 20 miles a week or like I'm not a runner, you know, or I got to lift X times per week or I'm not a lifter. But if you're new to hybrid training, like if you're new to doing both things, your floor, your minimum, your starting point is probably going to be even lower than like the beginner 5K program you found on the internet. Like if you try to start with that might be too much for someone that's been lifting for 10 years and weighs 120 kilos or something like that. You're not just going to go out and run 3 miles. I mean, you might survive it, but you're not going to feel good. And you probably don't need to start with that much.
Yeah, 100%.
That was something I did. I'm still pretty fresh to running. And then for me to try and get from the 1 run a week to the second, it was just, I had to accept that I just need, not just for that second run, but for both runs, I just felt like I needed to run slower. And I'd heard it so many times, oh yeah, run slower, you know. But it took a bit of going through it to realize, oh, okay, I see now. And then now that I'm actually doing, I'm like, oh, I can run twice a week and actually recover from it. Whereas before I'd do the 1 run, I'd be smashed. 3 or 4 days would pass. I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm ready to do the second run. And then the same would repeat. And I just never get that second run in. Where now it's like, oh, like I can actually do 2 runs. And I can see there'll be a time when I can do, 12 Ks in or 12, I'm not sure what that is in miles, whatever. But yeah, I could do 12 Ks in a week now. It just took me heeding that advice. And even another thing that kind of ties in there, early on, I probably should have done like, okay, run for a minute, walk. I just didn't really do that because I was like, oh, if I don't run for 2Ks, like, what's the point? Like, I can do 2Ks.
Because you're a dog.
Because what's the thing? I'm a dog, but a dumb dog. If I had have just done a minute on, a minute off, whatever it was, I would have just got so much more volume in early on. Instead, I got to like 2-3 Ks. I'm like, oh, I'm screwed. I need to stop. So it's just, I think it's the same with lifting. People think they need to do everything straight away. And obviously that eagerness is good, but sometimes you just got to listen to the people who have done it before you. And it's like, just take it step by step. Like
it's almost easier for the lifter who has never done cardio at all in their life. So like the completely deconditioned lifter, I almost find it's easier to teach them to run because just the cardio training in and of itself is challenging. Yeah. So they're probably not going to like go out and overdo it because they run for 5 minutes. They're like totally gassed or whatever. The person that I think struggles with running the most is like the pretty fit aerobically fit, like maybe they've done some zone 2 work a little bit, they've done some Stairmaster, maybe they played a sport in their past, so like they have this kind of baseline aerobic capacity, and they're like, I'm going to start running. And then they have the fitness, they have the aerobic capacity to run a pretty good pace, and they'll just like start going. Yeah. And they run like 5 miles on day 1, and then they're like, I'm never doing that again. So I think those are the people that have to be a little bit more careful.
So I didn't come into running that fit, but maybe a bit more fit than the average person starting. But for me, it was just the legs. Like my heart rate could always go. It's just my legs are ruined. That was the limiting factor. It was never, my heart rate's so high that I'm going to die. It's just my legs were fucked. So I just needed to.
Well, a big point with that, and another mistake that I think a lot of new runners make, is they're afraid of high intensity. They're like, I'm new to running, just straight zone 2. Like, I'm not going to do high intensity. It's going to be too hard to recover from, all these sorts of things. But the thing about zone 2, like the purpose of zone 2 is it allows you to train a lot. It is more recoverable. It's going to be a little bit more gentle. Mm-hmm. But as far as some of those, like, improving your running economy and efficiency, your technique, those sorts of things, some sprint work, some interval work can be really good for that, of teaching you how to not suck at running so bad. And if you just go out there and start slogging through slow miles, and you don't have any of that like higher intensity quality work, you might not develop the skill of running quite as well. So I think a lot of people think that you need to be fit enough to add sprints or fit enough to add high intensity. You can start with anything. You just have to dose it right. Yeah. So like if you're a brand new runner, there's nothing stopping you from running hard. Just don't run too much hard. You don't have to do
80-20.
You don't have to do a 10 by 400 meter workout. You can do a 2 by 400 meter workout.
Exactly. Or throw a couple surges in.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
In a longer run. There's something that's like the beauty of the popularization of zone 2 is like, obviously the benefits of zone 2 running, but it's like sometimes in check-ins I get like, hey coach, I've deviated from this RPE bracket, and it's like, man, I don't give a fuck. Like, did you get the run done? Yep, sweet. All right, did it hurt? No, it was all right. All right, you're fine, man. Like, that's all good. It's all good.
I'll have someone that wants to do like 3 runs a week, for example, and they're like, I've been running 3 times a week, just going out 30 minutes zone 2 for all 3 of them. Like, let's take one of those. Keep doing some zone 2 in the other days. Let's take one of those and do some like hill intervals. And now instead of having to run for 30 minutes, they have like 5 by 1 minute up a hill. It's way less volume. They get some of the benefit of the high intensity work. They got their zone 2 elsewhere in the week. They're training a spectrum of intensities. And I think everyone, regardless of your level, should train a little bit at a variety of intensities. You're going to be able to do more quality work and get more benefits from all the different types of training.
So for someone, say, twice a week, fairly new to running, maybe has done like a 5 to 7K, can do a 5 to 7K thereabouts, maybe do one day longer, slower. For the second day, if you wanted to increase or include some of that higher intensity stuff, how would you usually go about that?
Yeah, so if you're someone that's not training super frequently, a couple runs per week, you can certainly blend intensities and like workout types within a single workout. I think we often hear from like the higher level endurance athletes that each workout needs to have a focus. Like, this is a speed session, this is a long slow distance session, and that works great for someone has 14 endurance sessions a week. You can specialize each session. But if you're only training twice a week and you want to train at a range of intensities, you might want to do a couple different things in a workout. And I find that has a couple of benefits. One, for the newer athlete, it's just way more engaging, kind of fun. If you have like some sprints, some moderate intensity, and some easy zone 2 work or walking recovery, if you put all that together in a workout, all of a sudden that 30-40 minute workout just like flew by. Whereas if you're just on a treadmill staring at the concrete wall, you're like, I got to get out of here.
It honestly, just throwing in some intervals makes a huge difference. I did a little session on my, we've got the triathlon coming up, and like, speaking of higher intensity, lower intensity, last time when we did the sprint try, all we did on the bike was just zone 2 work. This time I'm doing 2 sessions a week. We're going to do our longer, slower ride, and then one day of some interval stuff, just throwing in some intervals, getting the legs moving, a bit more power in the legs, a bit more work at threshold and whatever, and did it in the garage. It was 34 minutes in total. It was 3 by 4 minutes of effort, 2 minutes easy, and it actually flew by. Just having the intervals in there, and I was like, oh, this was actually enjoyable, and it didn't feel like it just dragged on. Because sometimes the zone 2 stuff does tend to just drag on a little bit, but you throw just a couple intervals in there, and it breaks it up, and then all of a sudden it feels like 45 minutes of running was not 45 minutes of running. It felt like 20 minutes of running.
Yeah, and the intervals don't have to be fancy or complicated.
Right.
Like, you don't have to have some elaborate scheme and like super convoluted progression structure. Just do something to like work hard and then recover and work hard and then recover. it's like going to the gym and obsessing over whether you rested for 2 minutes or 2.5 minutes between your sets. Like, did you rest long enough to have another good set? Awesome. Have at it. Same thing with the endurance training, especially for a new runner. People will be like, well, how long should I rest? And like, how long should my interval be? What's the difference in energy systems between like a 30-second sprint and a 60-second sprint? Like, I don't care about that stuff. Just do some sprint work, recover, and then sprint again, make it hard. And then when your quality starts to suffer, you're done.
Yeah. Easy. Yeah, I honestly, so you go.
Oh, no, there was something I like with structuring a workout, going from like my background was more sports S&C, so it was the repeat effort sort of stuff, and then it was very much just working within a powerlifting gym. So we're going back into more of the conditioning based program, more endurance focused stuff. When I first picked up, it was at Science of Running.
Yep.
Steve Magnus. I was like, the parallels between like just a strength training workout and a running workout, I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is like, they've got almost every focus within some of these sessions. They just call it like stuff. Like, they just like put the stuff in there, just whatever else. And I'm like, in strength training workout, like, you've got your big heavy shit. You might have like your secondary with a technical focus at a lower RPE. Then you've got your high rep stuff. Like, there's different focuses for each, I guess, like rep range or whatever the fuck. People crack the shits about that, but like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a different focus for each thing. And it's like the same with running. Like, you could have your zone 2 warm up, and you could have some moderate interval, your high intensity work, or some more moderate repeats or whatever, and then dose in some extra zone 2 work. I was like, fuck, you can actually, rather than just like, this is a zone 2 workout, that's going to be a tempo workout, this has to be a, it was like that. It made a lot more, especially with like lower frequency trainees. Yeah. Like, it's you can do whatever the fuck. And there's something that I like about the way that you write as well, and even just with the training as a whole. It's like, you understand the principles, you understand the complexities of training, you understand that like there are some ways that are going to be better for like maximizing performance in a given microcycle, et cetera. But like, at the core of it, it's just like, you just got to fucking do the thing, man. Like,
well, when you're a new runner, I think the mistake that a lot of people make, or new endurance athlete, not even just running, if you're new to endurance training, people will come into it with a goal like, I want to run a half marathon, or I want to do a half Ironman or a sprint triathlon. And that's fine. Like, I think it's important to have some sort of goal of like a purpose or a destination to kind of keep you motivated. But if you're brand new to endurance training, you just need to focus on developing a broad base of like, you want to have some speed, you want to have some endurance, you want to be good at running first before you try to run a 5K specifically. So people will jump into it and they'll be brand new at running. They're like, I have a 5K in 3 months. I'm doing a bunch of 400 meter repeats to get ready for my 5K. It's like, you just started running. Like, you don't need to focus on the 5K. You just need to develop your running skills more broadly, and you're going to be fine. Like, the difference in your 5K performance 3 months from now, it's not going to be a difference. Like, just get good at running first. Maybe next year you start like really diving into the details of like, how do I optimize my 5K performance? But for now, like, start broad. I always encourage people, no matter what you think you want to train for, if you're new, whether you want to do a 5K, a marathon, run a mile, do a sprint try, there's room in your program for long, slow, steady, easy training, lots of zone 2 work. There's room in your plan for some all-out like hill sprints or 100-meter sprints. If you're new to running, you should be doing all of those things.
Yeah. This is something I've even thought about yesterday when I was swimming, is applying some of these principles that we're talking about now with running into the swimming. So like, we've just done a couple technique sessions with a guy. It's really helped. And like, I'm doing a lot of slow stuff, focusing on the techniques. I've got to develop the technique, but I'm like, it wouldn't hurt to throw in even 100 or 200 meters of just some all out sprints at the ends. Like, it's probably going to be good for me in the pool, just from like power development and just doing some shit that's hard.
Yeah. Well, from a technique perspective, it's like, how good is someone going to squat with the PVC pipe? Like, not that good, probably. Sometimes you just got to get some weight on somebody's back, and they'll be like, oh, this is what it feels like to move load. And they figure it out. I've seen people at the gym like learning to do a dumbbell chest press. You give someone some like 5 kilo weights, and their arms are just like noodles, like flopping everywhere. Because you can press 5 kilos any way you want.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Give someone a heavier weight, and you're going to see like their elbow drop under their wrist. They're going to get better alignment. They're going to have better technique with just a little bit more load to move. And it's the same way with running, with biking, with swimming. You have to have some sort of intent behind it for your body to realize, oh, we actually need to make some changes to get from point A to point B a little bit quicker. So sprint work, high intensity intervals are great from that perspective.
So I'm gonna just throw in like that unstructured, almost like fartlek, swimming fartlek, just throwing some sprints in between as well, just to get them in. And I think I like the way that you talk about the simplicity of cardio, because I know when I got into looking at it, you get very, all these tests, FTP and the zones and you just break it down to easy, medium, and hard. Can you take us through that for someone that's like a beginner wanting to get in? Like, what is that full idea or that framework that you've developed with the easy, medium, hard?
Yeah, for sure. So kind of classic like running structure. If you look at most running programs, you're going to have some combination of like high intensity intervals, whether you want to call it VO2 intervals or groove intervals. Like every coach has their own name and like ways they like to describe kind of what's going on, but usually have some intervals of some kind that are going to be really hard. You're usually going to have lots of kind of easy zone 2 training. And again, some coaches will prescribe that by heart rate or a percentage of lactate threshold heart rate or actual blood lactate concentration. Again, there's like a million ways that you can define these sorts of intensities. And then lastly, you usually have some kind of moderate intensity work closer to like a goal race pace, working on sustaining paces for longer periods of time. And a lot of people will get caught up in some of the more detailed or complicated ways to define these intensities of like, what should my heart rate be for this? What should my blood lactate be for this? What should my pace be for this? And with so many different measures and metrics and types of workouts, it can get very overwhelming for the beginner of, I don't know what to focus on. Should I be paying attention to heart rate? Should I be paying attention to my breathing? Do I need to buy a blood lactate monitor to get started? And like all those things are fine. Like you can use all the tools, but like over time kind of learned how to integrate them well. But when you're just starting out, just thinking about your intensity in terms of easy, kind of low RPE, medium, moderate RPEs, and hard, high RPEs, you're going to get all the benefits that you could, even if you went out and did all the crazy things up front. If you're starting on day one and you buy all the fancy equipment, I guarantee you're not going to get any better results than if you just think about your RPE. As you go along and get more advanced, you might want to start dialing in the intensity with a little bit more precision, and that's fine. But it's going to take you a long time to get there. So for easy training, that's going to be your zone 2, if you will. And I almost don't even like talking about zone 2. I almost just prefer to call it easy training because zone 2 implies a sort of specific range, like 60 to 70%, or like a fixed actual zone.
And I'll just interrupt you there. People also tend to freak out if they creep out of that zone 2, which is like, hey, you're a beginner, like it's okay.
I've never run more than 5 minutes in zone 2. Like it just, I mean, maybe it'll happen one day, but I just haven't. Like if I'm in zone 3, I'm like, yeah, man, this is an easy run. Like, whereas,
And when you're talking about actual endurance athletes and marathon runners or whatever, clocking up 100-kilometer weeks or whatever, they can actually go for an hour zone 2 run and stay at that low heart rate. But for us guys that are quite heavy, when they run a couple times a week, it's very rare that you're just going to stay in zone 2. But thinking about it as just easy.
Yeah.
Easy work. Subjectively easy.
It's easy work that allows you to accumulate a lot of volume, or the volume that you need to accumulate, and it allows you to still do the medium and the hard training without feeling like trash.
One thing that Viada said, that the king, duration over intensity. That was something that always stuck with me. It's like always when I'm going for those, it's like the goal here is duration to go a certain amount of minutes or distance. So don't focus. Just keep the intensity low.
Yeah. So when I think about like my training, if I'm going to do an 80-kilometer week, for example, and I think, okay, what intensity do I need to be at to allow myself to do this 80K week? Yeah. And that might be a little bit different than if I'm like ramping up for an ultra, for example. I'm like, okay, I want to run 140K this week. My zone 2, it might look a little bit different in that context because I have so much more volume.
Slower.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to back off a little bit
Shuffle.
more. So to keep the training weak, to keep the cumulative volume easy, my zone 2 actually needs to get pulled back a little bit.
So will you pull it back like you just like full, like just shuffle along, just like ultra?
Potentially. Yeah. And the thing I always return to when someone's like, am I doing my zone 2 work too fast, too slow, whatever, just try it, like make some adjustments, and you have to experiment, adjust, and see how you feel. So the ultimate test, the number one test, so like you can highlight this in the podcast, if you're like, I want to know if this zone 2 pace is appropriate, try it faster for a week, try it slower for a week, see how you feel. If you slow down on your zone 2 work and you notice that you, 1, feel better, and 2, your high intensity workout quality improves, do that.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. If you decide to try your zone 2 work a little bit faster, and then you evaluate your recovery and nothing changed. Let's say nothing changed. You bump up the pace in your zone 2 work a little bit, and you still hit your workouts. You still hit your metrics. You're still feeling good. You're still recovering. Do that. You just got in a little bit more quality work. Fantastic. But again, if you do that same thing and you notice, like, I'm a little lethargic, my high intensity intervals felt a little bit tougher this week, trying to balance it with the faster zone 2 work, back off. So it's all about testing and observing and seeing how you feel. And when you take that approach to it and really focus on kind of adjust and assess, the zone 2 prescription gets so much easier because you realize what it's all about.
Yeah, I like that. It's a real practical way to go about it. I think even with like combining the lifting and the running, we just keep coming back to it with our clients. Like, oh, should I do this on this day, this on that day? Do it, find out, how do you feel? Running the day before you lifted, how did you feel? The opposite, how did you feel? If you felt all right, you got your work in, nothing took a hit, that's your answer, I think. And that's what you're talking
it's like,
about
did
there,
you overshoot that squat? Well, how'd the rest of the workout go?
Well, that's the thing. And that's the thing. Like, we can call something an overshoot, but is it a problem? Why is overshooting a problem? Did it cause you to get injured? Did it cause you to be super fatigued? If it did, okay, maybe I'll do that next week. But if it didn't, keep doing it. Like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
Like,
It's the best when you get a client that comes in with like that fear. So like, what if I overshoot?
You're actually allowed to
what if I overshoot? I'm like, what if, man?
what happens? What actually happens?
It's like, what if? I'm like, fuck around, find it, like, see what happens. Like, see if it was, then just tweak it next week.
Well, that's what I always say with the overshooting thing. I'm like, it's great. Like, it's a tool. You learn from it. Just like now, next week, just make the correct adjustment. So, if you go 5 kilos up next week when you've overshot this week, I'd be like, that's probably not a smart decision. But yeah, adjust, learn from it. But I think I know when I first got into my more powerlifting training, it was focused on RPE. Everyone was so like concerned with like half an RPE overshoot and I was like, and I've just years of doing it now. I've realized I'm like, doesn't fucking matter. It's actually doesn't matter.
And it ties in with like the running thing. Like sometimes like with clients, I'd be like, that was appropriate. That was appropriately challenging. Like it wasn't too easy. It wasn't too hard. You're in the ballpark. Yeah. Was it exactly where we needed to be? Kind of. Like that's all that matters.
Watch this trigger people too. That it doesn't matter.
One of my favorite.
It doesn't matter.
People hate that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. The thing is, it matters
to a point.
And
I love that you share that with your obviously everything endurance based. It's just it's our view on like the lifting side, but obviously it just kind of echoes.
Well, that's one of my favorite things about using heart rate for zone 2 training, because people are like, "What do you think of heart rate?" And I kind of explain all of the ways that heart rate isn't necessarily perfect at the gold standard in terms of prescribing the zone 2, but it's a great way to monitor and then have something to adjust. So if you say, what should my heart rate be for zone 2? I don't know. I can give you a super broad range where like your zone 2 might fall. But if you do zone 2 work for a month and we see, okay, what is your heart rate for the zone 2 work that you've been doing, then we can adjust from there and say, you know what, let's pull back 5 beats per minute and then see what happens with your recovery. So it's not so much, your zone 2 needs to be X heart rate, but then heart rate can be a tool from which you make some adjustments. Just like load. Like if you say, what load should I use for my sets of 8? I mean, I can make a guess at like what percentage 1RM your sets of 8 might be, but it's not going to be precise. But we measure the load so that next week we know where to go.
Yeah, right.
And the heart rate's the same. Like we used to, and obviously bring back to lifting, we used to use, I think, a bit more like percentage backoffs from like a top single, for example. But then after a while, I was like, this is such a broad thing for everyone. Do something that's challenging. If for you it's more or less, like having these set ideas in mind. Obviously, it comes from a good place, and it's trying to give someone a ballpark, but just do what feels hard enough, but not too hard. Like that's just what it is. Yeah.
Well, and like the percentage of a single on any given day, I think is better than a percentage of like
of course,
right?
Yeah.
And I would say the kind of analog and endurance training is percentage of lactate threshold heart rate. So that I think is a little bit more precise than just percentage of max heart rate, for example.
Yeah.
It works a little bit better for most people, but it still has some of the same issues. Your performance on any given day and that sort of thing certainly fluctuate. But if you are going to use heart rate, I wouldn't necessarily use it based off of a max. I would use it based off of, like your 5K heart rate, for example. I think you're going to get a little bit better data out of that.
Okay, so run a 5K, all out effort, or just a normal 5K?
Yeah, so if you run a 5K all out, like 5K time trial, and look at what is your heart rate kind of, you'll see like it's going to start low, it's going to ramp up. What's kind of like the plateau? Yeah. So not like the peak that it went to for 5 seconds, just but like kind of draw that flat line during the last five minutes or so. That's give or take, going to be your lactate threshold heart rate. For a 5K, that's a little high. It might be just a little bit below that. But I'm fine using the 5K because it's really not that precise anyway.
And then, so you take that average there, whatever it is, and then that would be if you're prescribing lactate threshold intervals.
Yep.
That's roughly the heart rate that you're aiming for.
Yeah, so like, for example, my actual data, if I run a 5K all out during the last mile or so, my heart rate will usually be 186 to 189, like somewhere in the high 180s.
Yep.
So that's, give or take my lactate threshold heart rate. Again, my true lactate threshold heart rate is probably in the low 180s. But I would take a percentage of that, like say 75% of that 185 or whatever it is. That could be a good zone 2 for me.
Yep.
And again, adjusting based on all the things that we've talked about, but that's probably better than 60 to 70% of max heart rate. Yeah. I think it's going to give you a better starting estimate at least.
Beautiful. And if you're listening and you're feeling overwhelmed with all that, just remember just to go back to easy conversational
just
pace.
Rewind and skip over this part.
Go back to easy conversational pace. Because realistically, like when I first got into, I was, again, consuming heaps of Viada stuff. That was my go-to when I started running. And we did it all. The Cooper's test, like getting all these specific paces. And then kind of just got to a point where I realized, yeah, it doesn't matter. We'll just prescribe RPE. And we did easy, medium, hard, but I just used RPE ranges. And I got through my first half marathon just doing that.
So no matter how much we talk about this, and no matter how much I'll like talk to a client about this, the people will always say, yeah, but I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, I get it, but I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like they get it conceptually, but then they go to do it and they're like, I don't know, is this too fast, too slow? So I think even though like in principle, yeah, just say easy, like people still just don't get it. Like people need a starting point, and I totally appreciate that.
Yep.
So if I had to pick one, like the starting point, and when I'm writing coaching programs and I have like a baseline assessment of like what is your aerobic fitness, I use the ventilatory threshold test.
Yep.
And there's a number of ways to go about that. So if I was going to give someone just one like kind of hard data sort of way to go about zone 2, it would be to look at your respiratory rate. And when you're running, it's actually really easy to get a respiratory rate because you have a cadence and you kind of breathe along with your cadence. And if you just get a certain breathing rhythm going, then we know what your respiratory rate is. And most people, say 9 out of 10 people, if they're taking between 6 to 8 steps per breath cycle, that's zone 2. If your cadence is between like 160 and 180, which is a normal kind of running cadence, and you have a 6 to 8 step kind of breathing rhythm, your respiratory rate is going to be in the 20s.
Yeah.
And the 20 to 25 breaths per minute. And that is very average, very typical of zone 2 work. So if you just kind of get into a groove, get running, kind of take, inhale for 1, 2, 3 to 4 steps, and then exhale for 1, 2, or 3 to 4 steps. That's going to be zone 2 for pretty much everybody. Mm. And I like that because there's no data required. There's no device required. You just kind of get in the sync, get in the rhythm with your breathing and your steps, and it adjusts rapidly. So you don't have to wait for your heart rate to spike going up a hill. Yep. As soon as you hit a hill, you're going to feel that respiratory shift. Mm-hmm. So you can take that with you anywhere, applied to any activity. It works super, super well. So if nothing else, you can always fall back on that respiratory rate.
Okay. Nice. And that's straight from the get-go. As soon as you start to run, just start to be mindful of how many steps something taking.
Yeah.
Per
and
breath.
You don't have to think about it obsessively. You don't have to be like counting your entire run, but get into a run, get 5-10 minutes in, and just kind of see what your breathing rhythm is. Kind of think about that breath for a minute. It can be very meditative, which I really like. Sometimes on long runs, I'll just kind of start thinking about that breathing rhythm, and it'll help me get into kind of a flow state. It's really nice. But yeah, you can always fall back and check on it. It works really well in the heat as well, which I find is when heart rate just kind of toss it out the window.
I learned that last week.
Yeah.
First run in the heat. It was like 31 degrees, humid as midday. I'm like, it shouldn't be too bad. I died. Like same distance as the previous week, and slower. I was cooked. My heart, it was like 180. I'm like, what is happening here? I was cooked. It was
my
insane.
heart rate.
I was going like 7 minutes per fucking kilometer. It was so slow, but I was just dying. It was the worst.
My heart rate can be on like if I'm unacclimatized, if I go out on a hot day, like traveling, it's winter back home for me, come here, it's super hot, I start running, my heart rate could be 15, 20 beats higher at my normal respiratory rate for zone 2 because I'm not used to it. There's just that kind of stress response to it. So yeah, always fall back on that breathing rhythm. It works so well.
I don't like the heat. I've realized that like my endurance, I just don't like it in the heat. Like the best runs I've been on are the ones where it's like overcast, a bit cool, might be a bit of drizzle or whatever, and it just feels so much nicer. As soon as the heat hits, you just I don't know, I shut down. It becomes so difficult.
Well, that's tough for hybrid guys because like your ability to dissipate heat is a big function of your body mass and your body surface area. Yeah. So if you're a bigger guy, if you're 120 kilos or like some big powerlifter guy, you have exponentially more body mass for just a little bit more surface area. So you're not going to be able to, you're producing a ton of heat, dissipating very little heat. So you're going to overheat really, really quickly. So it becomes much, much more important, especially if you're doing indoor training. Like if you're a power lifter on a treadmill, there's no wind. you're gonna overheat so fast. Yeah. So like being mindful of that, being mindful of what that's doing to your heart rate, but also just kind of taking necessary precautions or preparing for it, like having some ice towels or some cold fluid to drink can really help out a ton in terms of allowing you to get that volume in.
How does the because when you're where that did not come out from where you're from, I gather it like snows, yeah?
It's probably 20 to 30 below.
Oh.
And it's
far out.
It usually doesn't snow that much because it's too cold for precipitation.
Wow.
So we'll often get some snow like at the beginning or near the end of winter, but like January, February, it's just like so cold and dry and it's pretty nasty.
So do you end up doing a lot more indoor running then, like a treadmill, or you just go out there?
Some of both. It just kind of depends on the day and like my schedule and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I do find if you have the right gear, it's not as bad as it sounds. Nobody believes me. Like people hear this and they're like, "Yeah, you're full of it." But if you have the right gear, it's not that bad.
You're gonna try to stay warm, basically.
If the sun's out, it's kind of nice. Yeah. You get the sun's rays, and the best part of it is when it is that cold, you're the only person out there, and so you kind of feel top of the world, like braving the elements. Like, yeah, this is my territory. It's kind of fun.
There's definitely something to that with the endurance-based work, though. Just like I remember my last long run, and this is the biggest run I'd done ever before the half marathon was 16 Ks. And I just felt like, I don't have a bit of runner's high or whatever, but I got up early, got it done at like 7 a.m. Just felt like,
there you go.
Yeah, huh? There you go.
I thought it was just massive ego.
Like, I'm the best. No, but like you definitely just like I'm out here, I'm getting it done, and then you just feel like I felt so good about myself. Like I think the self-esteem was just
the early aspect too, because like I don't lift early, but I'm sure I don't know if people who lift early get that feeling. Whenever I run early, I'm done. It's like everyone's sleeping. I just finish.
There's a moral superiority to waking up early. Like if you wake up early, you are better than other people.
Goggins, I'm better than you. I think that also for me, I get those moments of being like grateful that I get to do this as a job. Like I can be up, sometimes in the middle of the day I'm training and I'm like, I get to do this because of my job. Like that I can just train
for sure
and enjoy it. And like it's literally our life.
Yeah. Well, to me, like strength training is great in that like, obviously, there's a GPP element, a general physical preparedness element to lifting. You're strong, you're capable, you can move your friend's couch, whatever, you can do all these sorts of things. But the cardio side to me is like not getting tired, not getting fatigued. I can travel to a new city, to Melbourne here, and walk 35,000 steps around the city, with my wife touring around and not be even remotely tired. Which is something that most people can't do. They hear 15,000 steps and they're like, "Oh, big day, it's your workout, huh?" And it's just like, that's just life, man.
Yeah, we were doing the same this year when we were over in Europe, 25K, 30K step days, and actually felt pretty good. I have noticed though, like subjectively, a year and a half now of doing actual cardio training consistently that, subjectively, I just feel way better walking. Like when I walk faster. Like I actually can like almost, power walk and sustain that for 30 minutes, no problem. Whereas before I was like, when I was just lifting weights, I was just like a slug. The other thing I've noticed is I think endurance training is ruthless. Strength training, you can cheat.
Yeah.
I used to say I'd train for 2 hours and I'd done 8 sets and had 10-minute breaks.
2 exercises in 2 hours.
And look, don't get me wrong. Like lifting big weights is damn hard, and some of the psychological stuff of like getting under a bar to squat or doing like you've done a heavy double and you got to do 3x5 back off. It's quite difficult, but you can sort of cheat with 10 minutes goes by, have a nice long rest, you sit down, eating in between. I found with the endurance stuff, it's just there's nowhere to hide.
No, there's not.
You're out there for 45 minutes, an hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours. You're just And like we've said, you've run and you're 8K away from home. The only way to get back is another 8K run, or you're cycled and you're 30K out. You got to get 30K back. Like there ain't nowhere to hide.
I think, endurance training I'd say is quite a bit harder than strength training. I don't think any fitness is that bad, like in the grand scheme of what is potentially hard in life, right?
Yeah.
But something that it always rubs me the
bro, we're going to war in the gym.
You got the tough guys.
You don't know how we train, man.
Like, you think you're a badass because you like went to failure on a leg press. Like, no, you're not. Like,
what if I woke up at 5 a.m. and then went to...
Exactly. You're like, no days off, 4:30 a.m. crew.
It's still a hobby.
Yeah.
We get enjoyment. At the end of the day, we do it because we get enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
Like... Yeah, I get enjoyed. Like I went swam yesterday, got out of the pool. Like you feel good about yourself. Like that's why you do. It's like
1 p.m. in the afternoon.
1 p.m. in the afternoon. It's good. No, but like it's enjoy. Like I don't buy into that. And we had another guy, John Sheridan, on recently. I don't know if that podcast is out yet. It is
this morning.
This morning, someone messaged me and said, "Why isn't the podcast out?" Update you.
Go crack it at him. Yeah, crack it at our loyal listeners.
I don't know where I was going with this. Yeah, going to war and stuff with the training. It's like.
Is that a thing in the endurance world? Because you might be aware of this. Obviously, you lift, but like in like powerlifting, lifting, there's a lot of people who think lifting is just a bit bigger of a deal than it is, and a bit harder than it really is. It's like it's not that hard.
The longer I think, and the tougher the race, the more chill the endurance athletes are about it. So like if you go to a
5K warriors,
you go to a 5K, you got people, and their outfit is like $900 between the sunglasses, the $300 shoes, all the stuff, which is fine. That's fine. But they take it very, very seriously. They're very, very intense about it. You show up at like a 100-mile ultra, especially if you go back to the past like 10, 20 years. I think it's getting a little bit more intense psychologically. But like you go to a 100-miler in like early 2000s, you'll just be crowding around a parking lot. They'll blow a horn and it'll be like, oh, I guess we started. And then you'll just kind of make your way to the start line and kind of start moving along. It's super chill, very, very little ego. There's some regional differences. You know, it's like in the U.S., for example, if you're a Colorado ultra runner versus a Southeast ultra runner, there's some differences in kind of how people approach it a little bit. But it's generally very, very chill. I saw an interview with, I believe it was Eliud Kipchoge after he ran, or maybe it was Kelvin Kiptum, one of the top guys who like has a recent marathon world record. They were interviewing about like, you know, how bad did it hurt out there, you know, because that's how people see it. They see it as like this big suffer fest. And he's like, it didn't really hurt at all.
Yeah, it's cruising.
Yeah.
Flow state.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you see that more and more, like the tougher the event actually gets, you have to be more chill about it because you can't sustain that level of like arousal for 2 hours, for 10 hours, for 20 hours. Like you have to be chill to get through anything that lasts that long. Yep. You can hype yourself up for a 10-second, deadlift attempt or whatever. But you just have to be chill to even survive an ultra.
Yep. What do you think David Goggins' influence in the endurance world has been? So how's your lifting going?
I'm sip of before you answer that one.
We don't have to answer it. How's your lifting going?
Oh, you got something.
No. Let's go on.
David Goggins.
I think a lot of the content out there that bothers me the most, that is often like that people want to know about. They're like, you talk to your random like relative or someone you meet at the grocery store that strikes up a conversation. They're like, oh, what do you think of Goggins? And you're like, oh, here we go. Yeah. I think the people that like to talk about that stuff, they are the people that need it the least. So you're like hard charging, ultra motivated, like they get up at 4 a.m. They get all like, they love Goggins. They are who they are with or without Goggins. Yeah. They're weirdos. They're doing their thing. It's fine. And then the people that could really use like a kick in the ass, they're not listening to Goggins.
No.
So it's just kind of
they're the people that just need to like train 3 times a week for a year consistently,
and then you show someone like that who like you just need some consistent training. You show Goggins to someone like that, and they're like, "You guys are fucking crazy. I'm not doing that."
Yeah.
I think it's totally backwards.
I think like even like the view of like personal trainers, like we had the Biggest Loser here as well, and like there was one of them was called like the Commando, and he was like this like just really tough guy. And so I think for a long time, a lot of people thought, oh, you're a personal trainer, you must like just wreck your clients and just like punish them. Like, oh, not really. Like I mean, and there's definitely trainers like that, but like, oh no, people do what they want. Like they're here because they enjoy it. Like I'm not here to like ruin their day. Like, but I think just because of these figures, everyone associates that. And then unfortunately, some people who might have gotten to the gym just don't because they think, oh, that personal trainer is going to be an asshole.
You got to meet people where they're at. Like if you have someone that works out one time a week at best, you know, and they eat like trash and whatever, and you show that person Goggins, who's like, if you don't have your bed made by 4 a.m., you're a bad person. You're un-American. Then that person's like, well, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's one of the worst things we can do. So Goggins, I'm a hard pass on.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I think we honestly consume Goggins more from we laugh.
I think there's comedic value. It's comedic value
because I know Jamie sends them through like literally like and just Goggins running like
yelling at you, man.
Yelling at the camera. Like, what?
I'm big into the, you know, like I follow a lot of like evidence-based accounts, you know, for like you know, physical therapy and training and like all these sorts of things, and a lot of them are like, don't follow bad accounts, like don't give them the light of day. And I'm like, I'm not unfollowing Joel Seedman.
Yeah,
it's just great.
Yeah, it's laughable. It's comedic. You get a giggle out of it.
Exactly.
The psoas thing's the best for me.
The psoas was the gateway to his soul. Do you know about the psoas?
I know about the psoas.
No. psoas.
Joel Seedman psoas?
No, David Goggins psoas. You know when he used to stretch it 8 hours a day?
No.
So when he was on Joe Rogan the first time, this is when Jamie and I first, and he's like, man, the psoas. He's like, I had headaches, fatigue, everything. His back pain, all fixed.
Like stress factors and shit.
Yeah, all fixed. And he goes, I just stretched my psoas for 8 hours a day. And I'm like, what? Does he just sitting in a couch stretch all day?
Yeah.
Just couch stretch.
Did that for a month and just sold everything.
The psoas. So that was the psoas joke that we have here.
Wouldn't he just get like chronically tight on the opposing muscle or something? Like, I mean, based on you know, internet.
If you were sorry ass bitch.
You and I, the boys downstairs, the physios downstairs probably know that that's not the way to.
Probably got a mega tight hip flexor on the other leg from the psoas, you know.
Psoas. So yeah, he loves the psoas, but yeah, no, I must say, I want to actually ask. I'm really enjoying the endurance world. Coming into the endurance world as a film, just enjoying it a lot. We've got a question because you've been a runner for a longer period of time. We've come in 18 months. We think that it is there's two ideas here that we think is it because we're more aware of running that we're noticing it's growing, or the community, or has it actually grown? Because like the Melbourne Marathon this year, they released it and it sold out instantly. Mm-hmm. Whereas last year it sold out 3 months before, and it's not till October this year. Have you seen over the last 10 years, being someone that is a runner, has the running community and the popularity in running grown, or has it always been quite popular? Is it we're just coming to it later?
I think that people used to just kind of work out and it wasn't a big deal.
Yep.
And now there's so many different like tribes and cultures and like ways to make it your identity.
Yep.
There's more events. There's more like fitness podcasts. There's just more stuff around fitness that I think can often give the illusion that it's grown. Where I think before, you know, people they'd wake up, they'd do like a little workout at home, they'd go to work and not talk about it. Now with, you know, Instagram, social media, you're sharing about the process, which I think does encourage people. You know, I think that there's more people, especially like younger kids, high schoolers. Like I see more high school kids in the gym now. There's a lot of things like that which I think are great. So I think fitness overall and running as well is growing in popularity. But I think a lot of what you see is just the accessibility of so many more ways to kind of just talk about it and share it.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fair. And the one thing that I gets on my nerves a little bit is like when people say the hybrid trend, because wouldn't you say, this is how I'd look at it, hybrid training is just training. It's to a degree, yeah. Like we're talking about, obviously pushing performance in strength or one, and then pushing performance in endurance. But most people, like you said, would have used
so more the GPP shit. They would have just lifted more just training.
Yeah, they would have lifted weights 2-3 times a week and rode their bike. Rode their bike once or twice a week.
Yeah.
That was just training.
If you're a bodybuilder who like decides that you're gonna incline walk a few times a week, that's not hybrid training. Like bodybuilders have been doing that forever.
Forever.
You know. So I think hybrid training really is something on another level in terms of your pursuit of, continued progress at both versus like just doing the thing for like general health support. I don't think that's really hybrid. And you can say whatever you want. Yeah.
It's just words.
It's just words, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a little bit annoying when people are like, yeah, hybrid train, I'm a hybrid athlete. And it's like, no, you just went for a walk. It's not, you're zone 2, like you're just living. So yeah.
All right. Where's your continued pursuit of progression in the gym at the moment? What are you aiming to get better at?
That's a good question.
Some base stands.
I'm loving all the I think there's something that I'll ask the question again after I get my spiel out, because that's how we do it. No, something about like the way you talk about principles of training I think it's very empowering. And the same with what you're talking about and a lot of the exercise you use, this movement optimism. I don't think it's a trend, but this movement optimism sort of like branch with Jefferson curls and the side bends and everything else. I think it's cool to see. It's cool to see you push that sort of stuff. In part, do you think for you, is it novelty? Is it creating enjoyment in training? Or is it to just try and be this fucking all-round, hey, I can run distances, I can do this sick shit in every plane possible? Like, what is it to you?
Yes, and it's so multifactorial. I mean, on the one hand, I know that no matter how much I focus on one given sport, like if I gave up everything to just run, I would get better at running, but like, to what end?
And then you'd probably be miserable.
And then I'd probably be miserable. Yeah. If I
Unless jacked.
Yeah. If I gave up everything to like just power lift, like I could probably do all right in some competitions, but like to what end? Like to me, I just don't see the satisfaction.
I can tell you what it's like.
But doing it all
miserable. But I also just want to because like my fiance loves Pat, and she still just shows up and just does it and loves it.
I don't mind it either. I'm all right.
Yeah. But for me, after 6 years, I felt like I was missing. Like I was just miserable coming to the gym. And I'm like, I love training. Why am I feeling like this? And I realized because I was only touching a little like small dot of training when there's this whole world out there.
Yeah, and if you love your sport, like by all means, like go all in on your sport. Yeah. But for me, I just think I get a lot more enjoyment out of being able to do a little bit of everything. So it's selfishly, I just think it's a lot more fun. Yep. Two, I've always enjoyed just challenging people's kind of biases, because I feel like most of the stuff that you see on the internet is just kind of made up BS. Like people just come up with these rules. They say things like, you're going to herniate a disc doing this movement, or you're going to lose your gains if you go for a walk or whatever. Like just they go so extreme with all these beliefs that just don't make any sense. So I like just kind of turning those in their heads and like taking it to the extreme to be like, yeah, you think cardio kills your gains? Well, check this out, kind of thing. Or you think that rounding your back on a deadlift is going to herniate a disc? Well, check out this Mansfield lift. So I really enjoy some of that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what's behind movement optimism for me. Kind of, bigger picture is I like pushing some of the non-traditional lifts just to show people like, this is safe and this is fine, and everything that you thought about this was some wrong made up rule that like, you learn based off of 60-year-old data, so that's behind it for me. I enjoy the way I train. I enjoy having a wide variety of training, just kind of selfishly for fun. But again, I really love showcasing it, just to kind of get people to open up their eyes a little bit and not believe stuff that's not true and hold themselves back from experiencing the joy of training for themselves.
Yep. I like that.
It's awesome, man.
We talk about this is training, just enjoy training.
Yeah.
And people also hate that as well.
People hate that.
People don't like that. They're like, training's not meant to be something that you enjoy. You're meant to show up. Like, why? Yes, there's hard parts. Like, obviously, when you have...
It's the grind.
Well, people want to...
It's the grind. It's the... I don't know.
I think it's people who have showed up when maybe they don't always enjoy it, and because of that, I think they get a sense of whether it's validation or they feel like they've done something. It's an accomplishment, so they really like attach to that. It's like, yeah, but man, you probably also enjoy it to some degree. Like you wouldn't unless you're just a very major outlier. Most people's hobbies are something they enjoy. Like, I don't know. If it was anything else, like no one plays guitar because they hate it. No one's like, I hate learning these new chords, but I've just got to. Because it's like, no, you enjoy playing guitar.
You can't call lifting a hobby either.
But Well, and that's the other thing. It's people treating people.
No, I'm not like I think it's a hobby.
But that's the thing.
But it's triggering.
With some, I don't know what it is with lifting, and maybe it's happens with other sports. But people treat something that is a hobby like it's more than a hobby, which is fine. We probably do that to some extent as well.
For sure.
But like
exercise is obligation.
But at the end of the day, you have to understand that it is a hobby. Like even if you put more effort than some people put into chess or I don't know, whatever, insert any other hobby. It's still a hobby. Like
It's a hobby.
Oh yeah, fucking oath it is.
So maybe just enjoy it and just take it easy. Like
There's it's definitely like that bell curve meme, like, you know, at the bottom you got like, oh, I just kind of have fun with my training, and then it gets progressively more like detailed and intense and all in, and on the other side it's just gonna have fun with my training. But with all those bell curves memes, there's like an understanding and a nuance on the other side that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
So I think that people want to straw man it and being like, well, you're saying nothing matters, right? Like, and it's like, no, we're not saying nothing matters. We're just emphasizing a particular point. You know, and I think that's what bothers me most, when people just like see something like, you know, I'll say something about technique not being as important as you might have thought. And they're like, saying technique just doesn't matter at all then? Like, no.
So
the whole post said that technique matters, just not in that way.
You cop this shit as well, because I put something about and again, it may be provocative, the interference effects bullshit.
Yeah.
Someone did not like it. And I'm like, I go for 99% of people.
Can't read.
Yeah, for 99% of people, doesn't matter. This guy was just not having it. He's like, you're saying it's bullshit. You're saying it doesn't exist. I'm like, no, I'm just saying for 99% of people, it doesn't fucking matter. We don't need to worry about it. Just if you structure your training like that, you'll be able to progress in both. And people just, they want to pick and choose what they want to see. And then, yeah, these weird fucking ideologies. Can't enjoy training, and training's not a hobby.
Yeah, and if you wake up after 4 a.m, you're a bitch.
You're a bitch. Swimming though is a new level of beast that I'm finding out. That is demons. I said that. So I had a post written yesterday, and I said the swimming demons make the running and cycling demons look like fairies.
I'm not tough enough for swimming.
I've seen that you don't. Yeah, someone asks you if you want to do a try, and you're like, I just don't like it.
I've done tries.
Yeah.
There's 2 reasons I hate swimming.
Yep.
One, when I do triathlons and people are with you in the water and you like get kicked in the head.
Yep.
Scares the shit out of me.
Yeah,
I'm not about that. So if I knew, like, if I had a guaranteed like radius around me where, like, there's no other humans, I'd be much more interested. And 2, I'm cold enough as it is, just living where I live, that I don't need to volunteer for more like cold exposure. I just kind of have had enough. So if the water was warm, if there was no other humans, I think it would be fantastic.
Solo try.
Yeah.
yeah. Swimming's beast. I reckon we've probably clocked it there. Have we got anything to finish off with?
We've done it.
Any questions?
So we hit the gym.
We're at the gym now. We're going to slam a session. We're going to take us through some fucking...
Charlie's going to take Alec through his workout.
Yeah. Incline dumbbell press. No, we're going to do some heavy...
It's Thursday.
Heavy single leg work.
Heavy single leg work. I did your knee crusher.
Yeah.
I didn't send it in, but I did it after my half marathon, like 2 days after, and I've been fucked ever since. My knee's been fucked ever since. But it's your knees,
right? But it's your RTB, so that's all right.
That's fine.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah. Anyway, we're right. We'll be right. But yeah, I really liked that. So we're going to slam some single leg work now.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there. But thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
It was awesome. Great job.
And actually, last thing, what do you like about Australia?
You know, of all the like places I've been internationally,
Yeah.
Australia is the most similar and the most familiar. Take away the accents, drive on the other side of the road, I'd feel right at home.
Yeah.
There's some funky expressions. Like I was training with a guy and he's like, "You want a super duper?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What?"
It's an icy pole.
Yeah.
It's a brand of icy pole.
Yeah. He had me thrown for a second there.
That's so good. What did you think you wanted?
I don't
You want a super duper?
Yeah, I was like, what are we getting at here? I like kilo plates. I think kilo plates are great.
Yeah.
Because you look...
That's pretty un-American, man.
You look a little stronger.
Yeah, man.
You look just a little bit stronger for the gram. So kilo plates for the win.
Beautiful. So just because, I was watching some UFC stuff, Colby Covington. He thinks that we're like a full, like, suppressed by the government over here and stuff.
That's like the whole UFC's view.
That's the UFC's
They hate
view.
Melbourne. They hate Melbourne.
How can you hate Melbourne?
Dana White hates Melbourne
because of the lockdowns, because we had strict lockdown rules. But I'm like, if you actually came here...
Because of the COVID regulations.
In the north half of the US?
But if you actually came here and saw, it's like, literally, it's fine.
Did you guys have regional...
We do whatever the fuck we want.
Did you guys have, like, regional wars, like, the north versus the south for us in terms of lockdown? Or, like, you're an idiot.
Not too much.
Nah, it wasn't that bad.
We just had the worst.
We just had a
just-
lot of people like just leave.
You didn't like break up families and have divorces and stuff.
I reckon there was division, definitely.
Yeah.
More like just by way of opinion.
Oh, friendship shattered. Like
Yeah.
jobs lost. Yeah, it was intense.
Yeah.
Oh, what, in back home? Like, because people were just trapped together.
Well, like, so if I think that you should wear a mask and you don't think you should wear a mask,
Oh, to that level.
yeah.
There was a little bit of that within groups, but not to the extent where it was like friendship over. It was more just like
Yeah.
people just punching on and being like, you're a dickhead. But yeah, I really didn't like that aspect of it by the end of it. I was just like, all right, we need
I was tired.
to
yeah.
move on. Like this, it was like people were creating an identity between things like that. And I was like, can we just fucking... And
Don't look at anything that Colby Covington ever says and think that that's representative of any population of
Colby
people.
he's putting that on, isn't he? It's
He's
that
a
real
fucking
right-
moron.
Yeah.
He's a moron. Don't.
So the things I have to say about Melbourne, like the likes and dislikes, the food has been great. Everywhere I've been, the food's been fantastic.
Yep.
Two, the people are really, really nice. Haven't had any bad interactions. Things I don't like, the parking in the city is unreal.
yeah.
Like even American cities, like we're known for just destroying people, that kind of stuff. It's terrible.
The lack of parking or the price?
The cost
Yeah,
to park in the garage
Yeah.
in the
Nah.
hotel.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, you can only park in the city after like 4 p.m. You'll get it'll be like $13
Decent rate.
for all night, and that's fine. But yeah, during the day, it's ridiculous. It's like $40 an hour. Whatever the
I
fuck
went
it
out
is.
to dinner. We sat a little bit longer talking than I thought. I paid for parking for 2 hours. We ate for like 2 hours, 15 minutes. So like I just missed it.
Yeah.
Got $100 ticket.
Oh my.
Oh, nah, you got to check that shit.
It's crazy.
It's honestly better
They're
just
brutal.
to catch
They're brutal.
the training or just like
Yeah.
This car has cost. I should not have rented the car for Melbourne. It has cost me a fortune. It's unreal.
Yeah, you live and you learn. Experience. Money's just energy. That's what I'm learning. Anyway, I like that. Good little segue to finish off. And now we'll go crush some single leg work. But
Let's do it.
Thank you
Thanks,
for coming
bro.
on. And yeah,
Thanks, guys.
cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.